If you're looking for the most amazing podcast ever, well, this isn't it. You're listening to the Average Fellas Podcast, guaranteed to let you down and leave you unsatisfied.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Average Fellas Podcast. Oh man, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is the second time trying to do the intro because I had I lost my train of thought the last time I tried to record this. So hopefully this time we get through it, guys. Once again, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. I'm your host, Zodi Zach. Today is August 10th, 2020. It's a beautiful Monday morning here in Riverside, California. Whew, a lot of information to talk about today. I just want to talk about some highlights from last episode real quick, guys. Last week we had our guests on, our friends on from Alaska. We had Murph and Mary, two of the sourdoughs, local sourdoughs from Alaska. If you didn't catch last episode, we learned what a sourdough is. A sourdough is somebody who's basically a seasoned person that moved to Alaska and they spent some time there. They're not from Alaska originally. They weren't born there, but they transitioned to Alaska and spent some time there. So they're called sourdoughs. Pretty cool thing. Yeah. So if you get a chance, listen to last week's episode. We got into women's rights and feminism in Alaska. Super good episode. Man, I just wish them the best of luck. So excited to have them on. It was a good time. So yeah, if you guys have a chance, go take a look at that. Let me talk about some numbers really fast. Just last week's episode, we had 38 listens to on that episode in the first week. 38 in 1 week. That was a good job, guys. Appreciate all the listens to you guys out there. The podcast has upwards of 230 individual listens. So thank you guys for all your hard work listening to me talk. I really appreciate it, man. This is awesome to have this opportunity to have people listen. Thank you so much. Once again, this is the Average Fellas Podcast. You guys know where to catch us at. You guys know all the platforms we're on, our YouTube channel and all that stuff. Check us out on our Instagram and our Twitter. Yeah, or if you have any questions, comments, don't forget to email me. You can shoot me an email, averagefellas@gmail.com. So yeah, a lot of information to get through. What happened this weekend? This weekend I went to San Juan Capistrano. Went to a lovely little place there called a Little Piece of Cake or something. I think that's the name of the cafe I went to, and I had some lunch there really quick. It was good, really good spot, beautiful area to be in. Then my wife and I, we came home after that. But yeah, that's how my weekend went. I hope all your guys' weekend turned out to be good. Anyways, that's enough about me. That's enough about the show. Let's get into it. I have a special guest here today. It's a longtime friend of mine, local boy from the 209 from Los Banos that I sort of kind of met doing these similar. We were interested in creative things. We're both creative people, and so naturally we obviously would hang out or we would run across each other's paths because of the friends that we had and the creativity that we wanted to express. And so without any further ado, I give you the wonderful voice actor, YouTube personality, and friend and follower in the faith, Riley Chase Fox. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing really good, man. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Woo. Man, that took a lot to get to where we're at right now, man. I'm so glad we got through that bit.
That was 15 minutes and 35 seconds in. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. Hey, actually, this is the
No, it's all
fastest I've
good.
actually done it, to be honest with you, because there was an episode where it took 15 minutes to get through it.
Oh, I believe it, man. I watch podcasts.
Oh man, but there's nothing. I mean, podcasting is fun though. Once you get going,
It is.
You can't stop talking.
Yeah. Oh, you can't. You can't, especially if you're. If you're with like-minded people or people that challenge the way that you think, can definitely lead into a really interesting conversation. And before you know it, you're like 5 hours deep,
Right.
and you're like, "Whoa, where did the time go?" So, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Right. Hopefully, I'm not trying to keep you for 5 hours. I'm sure you have more important things to do than to be a guest on this new fledgling podcast. So.
Oh, no. I made sure I sacrificed time. No, I'm just kidding. If I say it like that, it sounds bad. No, I put aside time. Don't worry, Zach. I'm all here for you, dude.
Oh man, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Hey, so man, what's going on, man? What's new? What's happening with Riley Chase Fox? Should I refer to you as your YouTube personality or?
Yeah, I mean, you can. So the reason why I chose to go with Riley Chase Fox, you can call me Ronnie. That's totally fine, dude. I mean, we've known each other for so many years. You know me as Ronnie. Yeah. The reason why I go by Riley Chase Fox is that's a stage name, and also too because since I'm going into voice acting professionally, there is there could be other people out there that are professionally working as actors or voice actors that go by Ronnie Donaldson too.
Right.
So it's kind of like a legal, like patented name kind of issue. And surprisingly, I'm very thankful because my name really stands out. It really catches people's attention. It's catchy, it's nice, it's smooth, it's clean, and a lot of the people that I'm training under or I work with or friends and voice actors, they all say, dude, keep that name. It's solid, man. It's a really professional name. And I was able to go and get it purchased off of GoDaddy. So now I can have the RileyChaseFox.com
Nice.
when I want to. Yeah, and then I gotta get it patented through Sacramento, so I gotta send all of that info in. So it's a long process, but I think I explained a little too much in detail of why you can call me Ronnie. But
No. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. So whenever I'm credited, I'll be credited as Riley Chase Fox.
Man, that's awesome. Well, see, there's some insights to YouTube voice acting that I never thought about. I mean, I'm trying to go as my video game handle, which is ZodiZach, which I didn't necessarily think about the repercussions of that because I don't really want to say it, but I guess I'll open the box. But Zodiac, the whole entire thing about that guy, and then that him being involved with some illegal activities, and then I'm not really naming myself. I was a kid when I came up with the name. It just kind of stuck. But that's part of the podcast thing. We talk about video games, so I just figured I'd go with my video game handle. So you can call me Zach, ZodiZach, Zodi, whatever, which one ever works. That's just kind of how I've gone by. Anyways. But yeah, that's kind of how I came up with my name. Enough about me. Anyways, voice acting, YouTubing. Hey, so why? When did you start this voice acting kind of, is it voice acting that you started with that turned into YouTube or maybe vice versa?
No, you got it right the first time. So it turned into voice acting leading into YouTube. So, how it kind of it started back when I was 18, so that was about 2012, I want to say. And kind of like my whole life, I kind of suffered with identity. So I didn't know who I was, who I wanted to be. And it was June of 2012. I had gone out to an interview at In and Out in a in the town that you lived in at the time, Santanella, and I met up with our mutual friend John. And Jason was there as well, our other mutual friend, and he was like, "Hey man, like, what are you doing like later today?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm doing nothing." He's like, "Hey man, like, why don't you come to my Bible study?" So the reason why I'm talking about, like, Bible study and stuff like that is leading into the voice acting thing. And I went there. I really liked it. I felt good. I felt really, really good about myself. And there's a certain type of joy that only Jesus can give. Absolutely, 100%. So leading all into that, I was really into like cartoons, animation growing up my whole life. Loved Disney movies, loved cartoons. And then that led into something called anime, which is a Japanese like style of animation, which became really popular in the United States. And I had watched a show called Fairy Tale, and I was really intrigued with the voice actors, and I started looking into that a little bit more, and I was just like, dude, like I really want to do this. And that was like the first time in my life that I felt like I could actually I was serious about something, and I really, really wanted to do it. So I started proclaiming it a lot. I started praying, fasting, saying, God, this is what I really, really want to do. I want to pursue this. I want to get into this type of field of work. And that was the first thing in my life I ever took really, really seriously. And then I started looking up stuff on YouTube, saw what people were kind of doing. They were doing something called an abridged series. So what they would do is they would take like a show and they would make a parody out of it. And there was two really dominant abridged series at that time, and that was number one. It was Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged with Little Karibo, and then there was Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which was done by Team 4-Star. So first and foremost,
I'm familiar with that one for sure.
yeah. They brought a whole new level to it. They really made it professional. It wasn't like amateur. Like, it was animated properly. It was edited properly. Like, there was scripts. They followed a storyline. They actually like created characters that were already created, and it was something that had never been done before, and it was awesome. So started kind of doing that with the show that made me want to become a voice actor, Fairy Tale. And then I kind of like started searching online for like voice acting websites, and that led me to a website called behindthevoiceactors.com. And there was this section in that website, and it was called Casting Call, where you could create your own projects, run an audition. People would submit their auditions on there. You'd get casted in these projects. Well, I started doing that, started getting casted and stuff, started like really getting my name out there. And then I was like, you know what, man, like, this is going really good. And I met a friend, and her name's Serenity. And she started making YouTube videos. Well, her videos were blowing up. She was getting like first like hundreds of views, then thousands, then hundreds of thousands. Then she was getting millions of views on her videos, and they were comic dubs. So you would take these comics and you would dub over them. You put in sound effects, music, and that started getting really popular. And then I started doing it with her, and then I started getting bigger, and then I started doing it on my YouTube channel, and that started getting me bigger. So I was like, dude, like, I'm actually good at this. Like, I'm actually, there's raw talent, but my mistake was I did that for so long that I didn't pursue the things that I needed to be pursuing while simultaneously doing YouTube, and that was taking professional voice acting classes. What I've done in the past 4 months has accumulated years worth of works, and I wish I would have done it earlier, but I'm actually kind of thankful that I waited and started pursuing it now, because my maturity has grown so much. My spiritual maturity has grown, and I feel like I can actually handle this situation a lot better than I would have if I was younger. And I felt like I would have hurt myself pursuing this career at a young age than pursuing it now. So that's the kind of shortened version of how I kind of started getting into this, and I'm still doing YouTube videos. The only thing is that when you're pursuing voice acting professionally, and you're doing abridged work, or you're doing fan dubs, what that is seen as in the professional world is seen as unprofessional, and it's actually disrespectful towards the Japanese culture, because what ends up happening is that you're showing them, hey, look, we're taking your work and we're making it better, and we're
Right.
making it look better. So that to them is shown like that's like their sometimes this is people's life work, and that's like their baby. When they work on something their whole life, like that becomes very important to them. And when someone presents it in a way that they did not picture it or they did not think of it, that to them is incredibly disrespectful and incredibly wrong. So even though I think it's amazing and I think there's very talented people out there that do it, if you're not trying to be professional, go ahead, do it. But if you are trying to do it professionally, in the voice acting sense, you're probably not going to want to go in that direction. But
Was that like something that you had to discover?
it was something that I had to discover, and it hurt my channel tremendously.
Wow.
Because what I was doing, was really getting myself out there, but I wanted to pursue this professionally. So I found other ways to implement voice acting because I'm a creative person.
Right.
And still wanting to be loyal and true to my fan base that helped me get there. But I've explained it, like if I wanted to grow as an actor and to pursue this professionally, I had to move on from those things.
You had to grow from that experience, develop, there's something, a roadblock in the way there, look at it, analyze it, then after that, like readjust your trajectory and just get past it. Cause I feel like a lot of people do that. They hit the roadblock in their creativity, and like first option, like for me, it's like that. Sorry. You're just inspiring me as a creative person. As soon as you hit that first bit of resistance creatively, you're like, this isn't, all the signs are saying, do not pursue this now, but it seems like you're just taking a risk and you doubled down on yourself, despite the fact that, you discovered that what you were doing wasn't, maybe your intentions weren't necessarily, they weren't for evil, but like what you were doing wasn't necessarily helping the community, but then you figured it out, then you readjusted and continue professionally to pursue it. Right.
Yes.
Anyways. Yeah. Hey, I hate to interrupt and just stop you real quick, but, What's your goal with your channel and like with voice acting? Because I kind of seen you start with it, right? And then I've seen like you really start adding more content for the actual community, not just you voice acting, but trying to be someone who offers not just advice, but you go get somebody who has valuable knowledge and in the industry. So I mean, like, what's that look like for you?
Yeah, so thank you for actually bringing that up, because that was important to me, and that was something that I battled with. And I was like, I love voice acting. Like, number one, I love this. This is where my heart is. This is what I love doing. So there's only so far motivation can get you, but when you have a purpose, nothing stops that. The goal is to be professional voice actor. That's always been the main goal. Now, how does my YouTube channel tie into that? So because of all the information that I'm getting and I'm receiving, I feel that the knowledge that I have, I can distribute it to other people. Now, first and foremost, I want to be a voice actor. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be an educator. I don't want to be a professional interviewer. I want to be a professional voice actor. That is what I want to do. And it's kind of funny because my dad actually mentioned something to me yesterday. He's like, why don't you try being a motivational speaker? And I kind of, it shouldn't have upsetted me, but it did. And I was like, why am I going to waste my time doing something that I don't want to do? And that's taking away from my time from actually pursuing something that I really want to do.
Right.
But the Holy Spirit being as gentle and respectful as they are, reminded me there needs to be a balance, because too much of one thing is bad. And if I spend all of my time just voice acting, and ignoring all of the other aspects of my life, that's bad. And it's also ignoring the blessings that I have been given. It's ignoring that blessing that I can give to other people. And I know that there's a voice acting community out there that love voice acting, that want to get into it, that are they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do, they don't know who to speak to.
Right.
And it's a lot easier than it needs to be. And we live in a world where there's so much information given to us.
Right.
YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, books, the internet. We have an advantage that people 10 years ago, 20 years ago did not have.
Right.
So I'm willing to put that information out there because I want to be an influence in this industry, in this field of work. And it's important to me because my targeted audience is people that are that love anime, that want to be voice actors. And it's great because once I was able to double down on that, that's when I was okay, like, this is who my target audience is. This is who I'm trying to reach. So the goal has always been to me to get noticed and to be a professional voice actor. So the goal has always been the same, is to become professional voice actor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And like you said, it just feels like you would be really missing out on an opportunity to share the knowledge that you've gained from being in the industry. And like, that's sort of kind of like how you've chosen to pursue the channel, is what I'm kind of getting from that. Like, the channel isn't necessarily just about it is about voice acting, and it's obviously helps you get recognized, like, this is the work that you're doing. But you also said that you want to support the community, so this is your way of doing it, of like distilling the knowledge that you've gained. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say. I mean, stealing sounds harsh, but
not stealing. I'm sorry, distilling. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. Or yeah. Distributing is a better word.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, because that's the kind of thought that I have behind my podcast, is that hopefully I can incorporate different guests from different places. You know, the name Average Fellas kind of is supposed to be all encompassing, of just like anybody can be on the show. Really, that's what it's about. And it just kind of, I know it kind of plays more towards the male, the male gender, with Average Fellas, but really, my original idea was I just want anybody's to be able to be on the show. I'm not saying that you're anybody, but like, I don't want there to be a sort of gatekeeping to the approach of how, or the opinions that I want to have on my show. You know, I want anybody to be on the show and sort of share that experience with us, so we can hear it, receive it, and sort of make it an informed decision based upon the conversation that we have. So I hope it plays out in some way, sort of like your channel. Like, you want to support the community in a way, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want to support the podcast community by at least hosting some sort of free thought experiment, I guess.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Anyways, back to the subject of voice acting. Who's a voice acting hero of yours? I know this is a question I didn't pitch by you before, but since we're on the topic, who's a voice acting hero?
Oh gosh, so many come to mind. To me, I always tried to balance out the work of a person, of an individual, and also their character as a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So I guess when I'll distribute it in two different ways. So when it comes to talent, there's people like Todd Haberkorn. He's one. Sheremy Lee, Tony Oliver, David Vincent, Vic Mignogna. All of these people have incredible talent that I've always respected and admired, and their work ethic to me has always been really, really awesome. But I tend to really catch the attention of who you are as a person too. Says a lot to me. So for one, like, a really good person that I look up to, who's I mentioned already is Sheremy Lee, and she's one of the hardest working actors that I have researched, and I have friends that are in the industry who are friends with her, and they all say the same exact thing. And she's just a genuinely gentle, loving, compassionate person, and she wants to help people. She wants to we all battle with our demons, that's for sure. I'm not saying that she's perfect, because we all aren't, but she really tries to bring the light on really bad times, especially with what's going on right now. And to me, that's a voice acting hero that I look up to.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's one. I got a lot. Zach,
yeah.
but I don't want
to.
Yeah, I don't want to like
I just never, I don't know, I don't necessarily know anything about the voice acting community except for some of the experiences I've shared with you and our mutual friend John. So the funny thing about the intro of this podcast, if you've ever listened to it, there's a voice part where it says, if you're looking for the best podcast ever, well, this isn't it. It's funny is that's actually John doing some of his earliest work of voice acting. He did it for me 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just saved the file, and then when we started to think about relaunching the podcast or trying to actually launch it, I dug up the file and I was like, well, I got an intro, so I'm just
there you go.
There it is. So shout out to him if he's still doing it.
Definitely. That's the boy right there.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I want to make sure that I put this out there. Tony Oliver is someone that I respect very, very much, because he is a professional coach, and he was actually my first voice acting teacher. And this is a person that is working in the industry. They've been in the industry longer than I've been alive.
Wow.
And they know the ins and outs. They know everybody, and they have a God-given talent to be a director, and a coach and a teacher. So he is someone I respect very, very much. He's an awesome guy. He's a great guy. Every time him and I talk, I'm always inspired to learn more, educate myself more, and to be a better voice actor, and has really taught me the little things that play a huge part in being a voice actor. Because sometimes people got to understand that acting comes first. You have to act. You have to know how to act. You have to learn how to bring out emotions.
Yeah.
And that's number one. But there's other little things that play into a part. Mic technique, studio etiquette, the way you treat people, the way you talk to people, learning how to cold read, taking direction. So that's something that Steve Bloom, who is, if you know voice acting, you know Steve Bloom, and he is a phenomenally talented actor, voice actor. He is so respected. He holds the Guinness World Record for most voices in video games. Yeah, most credited roles. So he's another one that is distributing his talents to teach and educate. So those are people that I respect and admire so much. So I just wanted to make sure I said those names.
No, that's great. No, now I have names to go YouTube and Google now. So I'm glad you're providing these names, because, I wish people would name drop more, so that way I can, experience more of the community, experience more of what fascinates you about this subject, or who are the fascinating artists of the subject. So that's kind of, it's now I know where to go. Now I know where to look.
And you could check out Tony Oliver. Obviously, Tony Oliver voiceactor.com, but he is involved with Adventures in Voice Acting. So if anybody wants to be a voice actor, check out adventuresinvoiceacting.com. That is the company that he works with. They work with Bang Zoom Studio in Burbank, California, and they do virtual coaching. They do coaching in class, but unfortunately right now they can't do it at the studio, so they do everything online. And then with Steve Bloom, you can check him out with bloomvoxstudios.com. Again, that's bloomvoxstudios.com.
Awesome, Dan. Awesome. Hey, I want to transition towards more of the content creator sort of side of your brain, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So as a content creator, I guess this kind of like leans into like vulnerable, like I guess a vulnerable thought, like the question, like, are you an analytics guy? Like, do you look at the response of like the content that you post online?
Yes, you absolutely have to.
Wow. Okay, cool. Cause like I was wondering, I'm a little, okay, let me kind of explain my situation here. I have a little bit of anxiety around it. So I wonder if that's a shared thought that maybe you have, like, as far as like being, had a little anxiety around your analytics.
Yes, it is. Yes, it absolutely is.
Okay, cool. So I guess coming from that perspective, could you explain to us like what does that like look like to you? How do you sort of engage with that and take that as a content creator? How does that reflect your work? Like looking at the results, I guess based upon.
Yeah. So number one, analytics are important because that lets you know what you're doing good in, but it also lets you know what you're doing bad in. So for example, with YouTube, the analytics will show me things like, who's watching my videos, where they're watching it, how old they are they male or are they female, how long are they staying watching my videos, where do they sign off, it lets me know all those numbers. And it's a thing that nobody likes to do, but something someone has to do. You have to understand the numbers because it's very important if you want to be successful. So me, I've always tried to balance out my audience with it, males and females, but whoever's watching my videos, I'm just thankful that they're even watching it. Right. I don't, the fact that people will sit and take time out of their day because, time is very valuable for me. I don't want to waste it because it's very precious, and the fact that people take time out of their days, whether it's seconds, minutes, or even hours, the fact that they're doing that to watch my content means the world to me. So I don't ever want to undermine that. But analytics, to me, I've took it in a grain of salt and tried to look at it in a humbling way rather than in a uncomfortable kind of way, and that stems from the anxiety because this ties back into what I said earlier with, I had to change my content and I had to do something that I was able to legally post, something that wasn't going to get demonetized, something that wasn't going to be flagged, something that I was able to put out and I was proud of. And it definitely hit in my viewers. But to me, I loved what I was putting out. So to me, it was like, whether it was 10 views, 100 views, or a million views, I was just thankful to get any kind of views.
Yeah.
And I'll repeatedly keep saying that. I'm thankful that anybody watches it. Whether it's one, then that lets me know that I did something. Right. If one person watches, obviously we want more people to watch it. I'm not gonna lie there. I want people to watch my videos.
Yeah.
I would like for them to be high numbers, but if one watches, then that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I totally get it, because like there's at some point it's like, you work on something and then you put it out and you look at the response and then you want to be like, okay, how do I get better at this? But at the same time, you don't want to obsess over it and be like, oh my God, my life is over or something, anything like that, So,
yeah.
But this is a thing that is constant. This is kind of a part of the running gimmick of the podcast. So it's just like, I want to talk and I want people to hear me. And that's kind of why I kind of pursued this hobby of being a podcast person, so there's a little bit of that involved in any bit of art, I think. And I think to not admit that is like to be not a real artist, what I'm saying? Not a real creative person, to be like, I want people to see it, I want people to have a reaction, whether they like it or not. But I mean, obviously I want them to have a good reaction to it, but anyways, no, I guess that goes along with being just a content creator. You just want to, it's just a part of being in that group of people that want to, show something to other people, I guess,
yeah, it's gotta be there's two type of people. One, the first type of person takes that as a hit and gets discouraged. The second person takes that as a hit and is motivated.
Right.
So to me, it's like if I'm reading a script and I might not understand, like, the way my character's feeling, or the emotion behind the setting, or the way my character feels about this character, or the way that my character views that other character, or views a certain type of opinion. I'm like, why don't I understand this? And I know it sounds really, really weird, but I'll sit there and I'll redo it. Now there's times where you have to be careful because you always want to give an authentic reading. And sometimes people look into the script a little too hard and it doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound authentic when they actually record the line.
Right.
So to me, it's like, I don't want to leave. I don't, like, my brain is just structured and wired to where if I leave something and I didn't understand it or I didn't get it, it bugs me. It bugs me so much that I'm like, no, I can't leave. I can't sleep. I can't finish until I get this done.
Right.
So
yeah.
that ties into the whole analytics. Where am I doing wrong? I got to get better at it.
Right. No, and I'm glad that you share that opinion, because it's like, I kind of feel like that a little bit. I look at every past episode and I try to at least listen to a one time through and try to see where I can do better at, and originally the launch of the episode, you start and it was like a 15-20 minute intro, and then now I think I got it down to like 4 minutes today, so that was pretty good.
Yeah, well, there you go. You learn. It's trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Anyways, what has been like your biggest achievement as a content creator?
Man, so for me, speaking on behalf of myself, I think my biggest achievement so far is it's been, God, I know it sounds so cheesy, dude. It sounds super, super cheesy. But reaching 70,000 subscribers, I think that's been a biggest achievement for. Actually, no. No, I can't say that now. First, I'm very, very thankful to all of my subscribers. I'm very, very, very thankful. Do not I don't take that for granted,
right.
At all. Biggest achievement has actually been able to bring on professional working voice actors who I've watched in shows, that I've listened to their voice in shows, and sitting side by side with them, doing an interview with them. To me personally, that's been one of my biggest achievements. But my absolute biggest achievement is actually voicing, to me. I'm saying to me personally, my biggest achievement, which hasn't been done yet, but when I professionally am labeled as the English voice of a character in an anime, that will be my biggest achievement. But as far as my YouTube channel, my biggest achievement has been able to bring on professional working voice actors.
That's awesome. I did get a chance to take a look at some of the clips and stuff, and I was actually really like thrilled about it. I was like, well, I'm going to come back here and like probably listen through the catalog for a while, because I mean, you do have a lot of valuable information on there coming from voice actors and stuff. So, it's not my field of interest, but I thought it is just a good enough source for me to even start with, because there is people that you're introducing that are names in the community. So I thought that was really cool, actually.
Yeah. These are not nobodies.
Yeah,
these
exactly.
are like heavy hitters. These are big top dogs. So it's like, I'm not just bringing on, anybody onto my show. I'm bringing people that are actually working and have been in the industry for more than 5 years, that are doing this professionally, that have a lot of information to share. And that's important too, because voice acting, and it's tough to say, but it is a relationship type of business.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to have the talent. So it's like, I've made friends and connections with these people that have brought onto my YouTube channel and have interviewed, and I don't do it for ulterior motives. No. I think that is so wrong, and I did it once before when I was younger, not with them, but just in life, like making friends to get closer to other people, or this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
I now know that that is very, very wrong. So when I'm being nice, or I'm speaking, or I'm saying something, I'm genuinely meaning it. I don't have any ulterior motives. I'm not lying to you. I'm being real. And I want people to know that, and I want people to understand that, and I think that is being authentic, and that creates meaningful relationships, and not doing it to be selfish. When you become an unselfish person, when you become selfless, oh my gosh, dude. Wait, selfless, right? That's
Yeah,
the good
selfless.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Okay. That's when doors, man, start to open up, and to me, that has shown me so much wonder. So I've made it a goal to try to be a better person. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. That is 100% true. But you know, when you make those connections, they help you. They say, "Hey, I know a guy. He's good." And they won't just say that. Like
Yeah.
you like, because they're hurting their credibility if they refer me and I suck at voice acting, or I'm a terrible person. So there needs to be a balance of those two in there. So I'm connecting with the right people, and it's really only looking up from here. But there's so much more work to do, dude. There's so much that I need to learn, and I'm doing all of this because I realize I don't know as much as I do. I'm not as talented as I thought I was. I'm not as good as I thought I was. So that was a really big life lesson for me.
Wow. Hey, I thought you mentioned some pretty critical things. You said, like you talked about, just trying to learn through the process and stuff. And I think something that I wanted to sort of talk about, because you and I both, we're both Christians. We both believe, and we have a certain way of believing. And I know that it plays the only reason why I bring it up is because I know it plays a huge role in your public persona, your channel, your brand. That's something that you've never shied away from. You've incorporated it in like, I'm not 100% of your content is not, directed towards a specific thing, but you have always incorporated an element of your faith in your content in some small bit of way. 2%, 3% of your content contains this subject or whatever. And
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how do you as yourself stay true as a person of faith while building a public persona? Because I think that's the line that like I'm walking right now, is like, I want to provide a form of content that is non-biased, but at the same time I don't want to shy away from my belief personally, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be the forefront of the content that I'm pursuing to provide.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm a follower of God first before I'm anything else. I'm a Christian before I'm a voice actor. And that to me was so important because, dude, I totally understand what you mean. It's like, God, I want to do this, and you're praying about it and you're fasting about it, and then you're battling with your mind, and you're like, God, is this something you even want me to do? Is this something that you'll allow, that you'll pursue? And I think that's something that we got to keep in mind too, because we got to remember that the Holy Spirit is respectful, as a gentleman, and God will make it very clear. Yes, this is something that you'll do. No, this is not something that you can do. And then there's times where it's like, God's like, do whatever you want. You've already made it clear what you want to do in your life.
Sorry, my
so to me,
I'm so sorry. My puppy, he's having a moment.
your dogs are saying, "Amen, amen."
Exactly.
Ronnie, preach it.
I'm so sorry, man. All right, go for it. Go. I'm so sorry.
No, dude, you're fine. It's something that, I prayed about, and my pastor was like, Ronnie, you're going to make something of yourself. Like, you got the okay. My leader at the church for almost over a decade has given me the confirmation. Ronnie, if you want to pursue it, pursue it. This is your dream. This is what you want to do. And you have that freedom. Don't ever let the church be a tripping stone for you. And my church is my home. That's my home church. That's where I found God. That's where God found me. I'll never have another church like that. And I want to make that pretty clear. But the fact that I got that confirmation from my leader and my pastor should give me, okay, Ronnie, God has approved it, because your leader and your pastor wouldn't just say that to you. So that's where I was like, okay, I can pursue this, I can follow this, and still stay true to my faith. Praying, pray, 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 read the Bible, read the scripture. People, you do not have okay, a lot of people do, but praying is so important.
And specifically, I just want to add some context. This is like, the conversation that you and I are having. I mean, people that are in the faith understand the context in which we're speaking about this, right?
Yeah.
People that share in the, in we all people that share in the same faith, right? Christians. Yeah. We understand the context in which we're speaking about this. And so, I want to make that clear too, that there are people that maybe they don't understand necessarily, they don't understand some of the principles that how we perceive things, and the perspectives in which we speak about things. But to those of you that are, you kind of, maybe you're hearing this and you're like in the same boat as me, like where this question that you're asking, I'm asking a fellow person who's follows a faith, a fellow person who has wrestled with the same questions as I have, and so I'm really grateful for the opportunity for you to get into it and dig into it like this. So I just really appreciate your vulnerability with that, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely does. And thank you for letting me speak about it. I know I don't want to go too deep into it, but just how do I stay true to myself as a person and as a follower and a person of faith?
Yes.
Just praying and reading scripture and just reminding myself who I am first, and then just telling God, hey, God, this is just acting. This isn't who I am, so I pray before, I voice a character. Now, there is something, there is some times where I won't do something, but I know that that's probably a question you have a little bit further, so I'll stay a little silent on that part if it gets brought up, but if I had to narrow it down to one word, it would be praying.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know that sounds cliche, but
it's true. It's if all the times I've heard that, and to not expect that answer from you today, it just kind of rings more true, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
Man, I'm sorry if I'm stumping you. I'm anyways, let's move on. Oh man. Here's another question. Do you think that that there are advantages or disadvantages because of your faith in regards to, obviously, YouTube and voice acting?
Yeah, it really is. There is definitely a lot of advantages, and there's definitely a lot of disadvantages. So, the great thing is we do live in the United States of America, and our amendments are super important. And we have that freedom of speech, we have that freedom of religion, and surprisingly, dude, Zach, I'm not joking with you. A lot of people, to my surprise, have been like, dude, you're a Christian? That's awesome. Wow. They're like, dude, I love you even more now that you're a Christian, because there'd be people that would come from my friend Serenity's YouTube channel, and they would hear because I got really popular by voicing a character. Well, a friend of mine, she would always leave in my outtakes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think people really fell in love with my personality. And obviously, number one, the voice acting skills. and they were like, dude, this guy Riley's like a really funny guy. He's really awesome. I'm going to check out his channel. And I would have people in my comment sections that would be like, dude, you're a Christian? I love you even more now. You instantly got a subscriber from me. And I was like, what the heck, dude? And I'd message them back and they're like, yeah, dude, you know, I've always like felt like as a Christian, you couldn't pursue this because of this, that, and the third. And the number one thing that we got to keep in mind is God wants his people everywhere. You know, whether you're a plumber, you're a soccer player, you're a shoemaker, you're a baker, you're a movie star, a musician, like God uses his people everywhere. And to me, if I can inspire people being a voice actor, that's a Christian, that's awesome. So that's an advantage. Definitely is when you put God first. God puts it's like it says in the scripture, when we put God first, the things of our heart will be given to us. And I can't quote the scripture name, which I'm actually really ashamed about right now, and I'm going to beat myself up.
No, I'm with you. I'm an average fellow when it comes to memorizing the addresses.
There's so many scriptures. So that's definitely an advantage, but there's also disadvantages, and disadvantages would be like, you know, number one thing, it's like there's things that I won't do. You know, like I won't voice any sexual, super sexual content. I won't. I want to try my best to steer away from any form of cussing. And sometimes it sucks because we have to respect script writers, and script writers very underrated. And sometimes they write something and that to them is their entire work. So when you disrespect that kind of form, it can cause conflicts. I haven't heard of any too bad, but at the same time too, I think the delivery of, there's certain times where a character might cuss, and that's something that I'm not comfortable doing, and it could possibly lose me the job. But I haven't had it happen so far, so thank God for that. But there might be a time where it does happen. But at the end of the day, I mean, we gotta remember that. And I don't want to bash on any Christian films, because I think they're super great and they're awesome, and I think they're reaching a lot of people.
Are you sure about that? Because I will bash on them.
now, then you can totally agree with what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
I've always had the issue with Christian movies are very corny, and I'm like, dude, that doesn't happen in real life. Like, dude, like, when me and my friends were actually speaking about this, and they've wanted to make a Christian film, they're like, dude, I want to make an R-rated Christian film. I want it to be bloody. I want there to be cussing. I want there to be, you know, sexual stuff. Like, this is what's really going on in the world. Like, this is sin. This is the stuff that the Bible speaks about and the Bible talks about. So, you know, to me, it's like, you know, I always pray and I say, God, you know, this is an opportunity presented to me. If this is from you, Lord, then allow me to play it. But if it's not, then okay. And but at the end of the day, you know, I'm in the acting, I'm in the theater ministry for the church, and we do things where, you know, we throw women on the ground, or we yell at them, or we do a certain thing, and God obviously is like, okay, those actions aren't right, but at the end of the day, we're displaying a certain type of emotion. That way it gets through to people, and people are like, yeah, dude, that's happened to me. I've been beaten. I've been hit. I've been spit on. I've been cussed at. I've been raped. I've been molested. Now, we're not molesting or raping people, but I mean, those are things that seriously happen in the world. Drug abuse, overdoses, and drug addicts, gang violence.
And when you talk about like theater ministry, you talk about like you guys create a theatrical performance to raise awareness around the subject. And you also incorporate, you know, your faith in that theatrical performance, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, yes. So because that's you know, if people listening don't understand church, if you're church folk, you know what's going on in theater ministry. You know what I'm saying? You know what's going on. You know, but if
no, definitely.
But if you're not, if you're not a church person, this is kind of like, typically what happens is there'll be someone will organize like I said, a theatrical performance that is created around a message for some particular reason, whatever it may be, and that's what Riley's talking about. Anyways, moving. So continue. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure that people kind of like who are hearing kind of get an idea of what we were talking about if they didn't necessarily get it,
Yeah, no, definitely.
But you were saying though that so we're getting into like sort of the disadvantages of this message. I'm sorry, like
we were talking about I guess that's sometimes I get a little too in love with what I'm talking about, and I can sometimes ramble on a little bit too much. There is advantages because like I said, the ability that God has humbled me with has created a personality that people trust me.
Right.
And
okay.
people want to work with me. With that, I've been able to be called back more, or being told I want to work with. I have never, actually, there is one person that I worked with that doesn't want to work with me anymore because I said something irresponsibly because I was young and I was stupid. And that's the only time anybody has ever not really wanted to work with me. And I owned up to it. I apologized to them. I said I was sorry. But unfortunately, they didn't want to work with me anymore. And that was totally fine. I totally understand that. But I've been able to create an amazing personality, friendly, outgoing. And because of that, that's happened because of God. God put me and created a new version of me that I never thought that I could be. And that's helped me meet people and get called back to do auditions or play characters because people want to work with me.
Yeah.
And my talent isn't as great as other people, but because I'm easy to work with, that has given me an advantage. A disadvantage is because of my faith, I won't do certain things that other people will want to do.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I get what you're saying. And like going along with the lines of like, you talked about your friends, like wanting to make like provide some kind of content that has more reality of it, maybe a little more explicit material to handle. But to share a story about it. And, I understand their feeling, because I feel like a lot of times maybe the church has sheltered people so much to a point that the reality is anything outside of the four walls can be a little hard to, outside of church, anything outside of the church community can be a little hard to maybe not, I don't want to say entertain, but to think through, because just a little bit of maybe, like I said, too much protection in that. And like over the years, I guess as I'm growing up, I respect my church tremendously, and I respect like everything that they do. And it's just been so appreciative of how, pursuing something like this, where I want to like, have people who are not Christians on, but not necessarily, I want to just be a normal person with them and have the conversation and not let that be affected by my my first beliefs that I think not necessarily need to be, talked about every single episode and said on every single thing, but it is a personal part of my life. Right. So it's just like one of those things, like I appreciate the fact that people like, more than ever now, like I think I've reached a point in my own life where that's kind of how I am, like we're just where I am as a person. And I think a lot of Christians probably need to reach that point in their own like life where they're comfortable with understanding like, this is my faith, this is what I believe, right? And there's a professional and there is a faith person. I don't want to say personality, but there is a professional side of relations, and then there's the faith side of relations, right? And so like kind of like exploring that a little bit, and I feel like that's kind of something that you've demonstrated a lot in your channel, because I've seen all the content. I've seen not all, I mean, I'm not saying I've seen all, but I've seen a lot of the content that you've did historically that you incorporated, that me and you have even, I've been in the same room as you when you were working on material that, you know, was, you know, Christian by nature, but like maybe it wasn't related to your personal channel, but like, you know, I've been around those kinds of things, and vice versa. You've done the same thing with me. I used to be a pastor, and so you were involved in some of the things that I organized, you've witnessed and stuff like that. And so you know, the reality is that it's super important to us, but at the same time, like the professional side of things, you know, is what I'm trying to explore, and how do I present that to the wider audiences that may not agree with my personal, you know, my personal opinions, right? My personal faith.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say, you know, like I'm grateful that, you know, today I'm more comfortable than ever exploring that today, because of the church that I have now, which in the past it hasn't been like that. Christian community can be a little, I guess, how do I say it? Conservative about ideas and thought, right? But if I think we're trying to pursue it and do it in the best of our ability, and to provide something of value to other listeners and stuff like that, and, you know, I think it's hopefully done in good faith, you know, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely, dude. And I think people got to keep in mind, as the scripture teaches us, there is a time and place for everything. So, with the world is brutal, it is dangerous, and it is not perfect. We live in a fallen world, but there is hope, and his name is Jesus. And we got to keep those things definitely in mind when we are pursuing anything, whether it's ministry or it's the outside world. But as you said, the Christian community can be closed-minded at times.
At times, that's all, you know.
At times, but there is a lot of open-mindedness, and I've never met any other kind and type of person as I've met Christians that are very open, loving, and respecting. The most open-minded people that I've ever been around, 100%. But there's a couple of super radicals, but I don't know. That kind of sounds a little harsh saying. But yeah,
we're looking at you, Westboro. Anyways, next question. I think that this is a more relevant way of asking. What do you, how have you navigated the potential like misunderstandings of like biased against your faith in like regards to the content that you create? So, because I feel like this is something that like, you know, like you present something to the world, and then you're like, hey, I know maybe you don't necessarily agree with it, but like, how do you respond to maybe people that don't agree with your content, you know?
Yeah, open conversation. Luckily I haven't actually experienced it a lot more than I thought I was. I've actually experienced more people that actually agree with me. Wow. But for the minor times that I have, I've always kept in mind there's a time and place for everything. Mm-hmm. So it's more of like for example, I posted a video about, you know, my Christian faith, and someone was like, hey, I don't think that you should be posting that. And I kind of responded, and I was like, hey, you know, thanks so much for commenting. I just I'm a follower of the faith, and I am exercising my First Amendment right, and just as freely as I am to speak about things that you might like, and both of us like, I'm also able to speak about things that I like that you don't. And this is my YouTube channel. It's not anyone else's. It's mine. So I can post with whatever I want on here. I'd love to have a conversation. And they responded, and they were like, dude, I didn't even think that you were actually going to respond to me. I think that's super cool of you. And they kind of shared their thoughts, and I shared my thoughts. And for the times that's happened through through keyboard. So it wasn't face to face. It was they commented on my YouTube channel. I commented back. For the times that I have expressed my faith and someone's disagreed with me in person, there's always been a time where you got to stand your ground. And it hasn't led into any bad altercations, thank God. But I've always chosen, I don't say things just to say them. I've always been very cautious of when and where I say certain things because I know how those conversations are led. So it's like if I'm in a group setting and someone has misunderstood what I've said, I've always explained it, and they've explained their conversations, and then we go on from there.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, a lot of people they think that if you disagree, I don't know, religiously or politically, that you can't be friends, and that is completely untrue. Completely untrue. Completely untrue.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been able to quickly clean up any kind of misunderstanding with a simple conversation. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
All it takes. That's all it takes. And in the industry, no one really cares about your faith and that's not saying a bad thing. They just care if you could do the job.
Exactly.
That's all they care about. They're like, hey, you love God. That's awesome. That's amazing. But can you voice this character? Or can you get this point across? That's really all that they care about, because when it's business time, it's business time. And if you have conversations on the side, it totally happens. And I don't think that renders any kind of relationship. But at the same time too, you don't want to burn your bridges before you even start walking across. So there comes a point where it's like you're trying to learn when and where to speak. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I totally get it. Yeah, because there's like you said, a time and place for everything. Professionally, I'm not going to lead with, "Hey, would you like to hear about my Lord and Savior?" Like I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna give them a sales pitch right when I meet them. That's not the thing, and that's not my goal.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about this specifically in this episode, but that's because I've, you as the guest have experienced this personally, and this is a firsthand account of your experience through this. And I'm asking you these questions based upon your experience, because I figured that you're the guy that I could ask these questions to, because you've obviously ran this chorus before I have, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that's the reasoning behind these questions that I'm asking today. And I thought it would be foolish of me not to take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Kind of staying along that same thread. What are your thoughts on like cancel culture? Do you feel that Christian content creators should expect to be affected by like cancel culture, or is this like sort of something that is really not really looked at or considered when it comes to Christian content on like YouTube and popular platforms?
Yeah, so YouTube is really it's a pretty so YouTube has gotten really sensitive in a lot of things, not only just Christians, but other things as well. You can get flagged or demonetized for jumping in a pool because it could be flagged as inappropriate or dangerous, or you could say something that someone else doesn't agree with. And that's why people got to understand First Amendment rights. But companies and industries are separated from the government. So the government can't come in and say, hey, you need to let these people do this or say this, because that's not the way that it's formed in this country. There's a separation between those two. So if a company says, hey, you can't say these things, you can't say those things. That's their business. It's their company.
Yeah.
They can do and say whatever they want. And we have to understand that. But at the same time too, it's like YouTube has opened the doors for so many different type of people. I mean, it ranges from people baking cakes to gardening to cars to sports to movies to musicians. So I don't think there's a lot of things that people as Christian content creators need to worry about, because Christians are very gentle and respectful and loving. So a lot of the times they don't make content that's questionable. The only thing that I could think of at the top of my head is they could be flagged or demonetized for expressing a religion that others might not agree with or something like that. But I haven't heard any stories about it, or have heard any content creators that are Christians
Yeah.
say that they've been demonetized, or that their viewership has been, hit. But YouTube is very strict on these things now, and to be honest, I think a lot of this has to do with they don't really have a solid competitor, so they kind of do whatever they want, because who's gonna compete with YouTube?
Right. Yeah.
Who's going to compete with that kind of platform? And I know that might be stretching it a little too far, and it might be overthinking it, but I love YouTube. I'm thankful for what it's done for me in my life and my career. And I don't think people need. I think the problem is people overthink,
Yeah.
and
And I
it's
think
not a big issue.
I feel like that's a good thing that a good perspective that you brought up, because I feel like a lot of people today would feel like, like especially with this whole coronavirus thing going on, now the crazy thing that you have to realize is that, this idea about our First Amendment right being thrown around, it's becoming more of a relevant conversation, and so for me, it's kind of like one of these things where, it's more productive to have a reasonable conversation about somebody's thoughts, and not be, and if it's not necessarily providing an opportunity to hear, like, or to listen to the other person's thoughts, then it's not necessarily a constructive conversation. So for me, it's just like, allowing that sort of to take place in the podcast, and allowing people just to share their thoughts, and me hear it. Like, I just continue to say that because it's really important to me, because, I'm glad you mentioned that you don't really feel like there's a threat towards the Christian content, that, that cancel culture or like this sort of thought around it. I'm glad you shared that perspective, because I think, sometimes the idea that you get with media is that we're under attack, and or we're, they're not letting me voice my opinion. And I think it's clear that, like, the platform has treated you well, and you, like you said, you really haven't ran into that. And it's, I'm glad that that's the experience that you've had, but moving on with this, what are maybe some practices that Christian content creators can implement to, like, better position themselves during a era of cancel culture?
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry, I kind of broke up.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So what are some, like, best practices Christian content creators can implement to better position themselves during a era of cancel culture? Because I feel like it's not just, I'm not saying that Christian content creators are specifically being attacked. I'm just saying that I feel like the content, because it is a specific view of how we view life, that it is a, possible reason for other people to disagree with. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that, like, sometimes, like, as a person who provides content, what are some practices that you do to protect yourself from possibly, falling to one of these, cancel culture things? Because there have been people that, obviously people have received, they've said things that have changed their lives and stuff like that forever. And especially, like, if you've seen in the last few weeks, a lot of people's lives have been changed because of the videos that they're posting, that they get caught in posting something racist that comes out of their mouth, and forever these people's lives are changed because of this content, right, that has come out. And I feel like, obviously I'm not saying that this is what you've done, obviously that you've never done anything of the sort, but like it just seems like there is a possibility for like, if it could, somebody could get caught on the wrong day, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes. But the thing is that there's so many people that they just act like they're perfect.
Yeah.
And they act like they've never done anything wrong in their life. They've acted like they've never said anything wrong in their life. Now there is like a moral standard, like us as humans, like our laws and rules and justice is far different from God's rules, God's justice. God's justice is absolute. Like we can't undermine that at all. But there's so many people, like for us, like if we murder someone to human standard, that's bad. Like you don't kill people, you don't rape people, you don't rob, you don't steal, you don't kidnap, you don't do all of these super extreme things. Like you don't drive 95 in a 25-mile-per-hour zone, you don't go blow up a school, or you don't go and like flip your car with people in it, just for like, I mean, we have rules and we have these laws, and standards, and it kind of gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, who, makes up these laws? Whose standards are we living by? Like, are we living by your morals, or are we living by someone else's morals, or are we living by the laws of our land, or are we living by this? Like, what? It doesn't make sense that, we live in a free country and we have that First Amendment right, and people seem to just magically forget about it. And it's like, oh, well, you can't say that. And people got to understand that just because you're offended or you're upset by something someone says doesn't mean that you being offended or upset is more important than that person's right to speak about that subject or about a topic or about what they believe in or what they think is right or what they think is wrong. They have that right to speak it, just as you have the right to be upset about it, or be offended about it. One doesn't trump the other. They don't nullify one another. They're both equally just as important. But our amendment is that we have that freedom of speech. We have that right. Because if people start being upset and offended by everything, we're not allowed to speak. Or so, what's the point of language anymore? What's the point of talking if something's going to offend somebody? Like, I know that sounds really extreme, but I mean, people got to think about that stuff. Like, are we going to get to that situation? I don't know, maybe not, but you have so many people that are getting upset by you just saying like, oh, that's lame. And they're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
it reminds me of the word lame as in being paralyzed, and I'm paralyzed. So now I don't like that word. So it's like, if like I don't know, let's say for example, like you're like, hey, Ronnie, I kind of don't like, talking about like my face because I have a scar and it's very embarrassing. Can we just kind of stay away from that? And like, it's you and I hanging out with friends, dude, I'd have no problem not talking about that. Or it's like, hey, Ronnie, like, I don't like being called Ryan. I like being called Edgar. Can you call me that? Sure, dude, no problem. Or it's like, like for example, like there's a really big issue going on with, transgenderism, or, people believing that they're male or female. And I hate politics. I think it's super annoying, but I think it's very important for us to understand what's going on and to do our research and to actually be informed about things. I don't want to say that people are dumb. I just want to say that they're misinformed and they're not informed correctly. But if we're in a political stance and it's like, present your argument, and they'll present their argument, I'm going to present my argument whether the person likes it or not. But if we're hanging out, we're chilling, and someone's like, hey man, like, and I speak on behalf of myself, I don't speak on behalf of anyone else. Let's say for example, Ryan was born a guy, but he feels like his name is Sally and he feels like he's a woman. If he was like, hey, I feel like I'm a woman, I would like for you to call me Sally. Sure, No problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I'm picking my battles wisely. I'm choosing the appropriate time to disagree. And at that point, it's like, you're just being a jerk, dude. Like, why? Like, what is so hard with you just being like, calling them Sally or Mrs. or whatever? But if we were getting onto the political stance of it, I would state my opinion and how I
Right.
feel about that.
Right.
Because I don't think the government has the right to tell me, if you don't say that, we're going to fine you and you're going to get thrown in jail. That's where I'm like, no, I draw the line right there.
And I think the thing is too, is like, one thing that we've been exploring, like in the church that I've been attending, is that like relationship is everything before you even get into that kind of those conversations. Like, the reason why podcasting is important, because there's a bit of humanity that's involved in the conversation, because we've been talking for an hour now, and it's like, I've listeners get to hear your perspective, and it's not just like a sound bite of 2 seconds, like, oh, you just hear my opinion kind of thing, right? It's not like that. It's like, there's humanity that's involved before you disagree, whatever does not unify, I guess, the global pop. I don't know how you get into it, but like, some things are better left off, but some things are better left unsaid, if that makes any sense.
Yes,
because you had said, like, at some point, like, you're just being a jerk if you don't participate, like, at a certain level of professionalism, right? And I feel like that's something that, like, like you're talking about, and it's like, I agree with you 100% that there is a time and place, and that, like, it's all relational, as far as, like, how you approach these subjects, and how you have these conversations that are maybe tougher topics, because I think that, if you take out the humanity of it and you just look at the issue, then you totally miss the mark, because that person has now been just erased, because you're not looking at the person, you're just looking at the issue.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I don't want to get lost. I don't want humanity to get lost between the issues. I want it to be, to at least be seen, and to be seen, and so hopefully that's kind of, and I really appreciate your perspective, because that's kind of like what you're sharing with me, is like, hey, like, and that's something that, like, I think it's time for at least pop culture, for the greater good of humanity, for us to sort of like move towards, because then at that point, it's like, there's this saying where I always say, like, either you're helping or you're hurting us, sort of situation, and I think a lot of times, that's kind of like, I hope we would take up that perspective, like, what can I say to help this conversation, instead of putting a roadblock in it, or putting a stumbling block between a perspective, and I think that's the thing that you've been practicing, and I really appreciate that. Moving on with it.
Absolutely. No problem.
Oh man. No, it's, well, cause I've seen you handle, being on YouTube for, God, I don't know how many years now. And like, it's just, it's a cool thing to see, like, I don't have any hard or bad feelings or words to say about you. Every time I usually turn around, it's generally good stuff that you're putting on your channel, and it's good content. It's like valuable content. I'm not just saying that because, like you said, like, you have talent or you don't, right? So it's, like, and that's something that I seen. I was like, wow, this is a local guy who's doing this. And, it's awesome to see that. Keep moving on with this, some of the questions here. What, as a content creator, what is something that you want to see sort of develop more in the stuff that you work on? Like, what are some of the, like, the future things that you're, like, looking at, and you'd say, critically look at your content and say, this is what I want to develop in? Is it more like the video stuff, or more, I know you said voice acting, but as far as, like, I guess as a YouTuber specifically is a question that I'm directing to you.
Yeah, I would like to create my own animation show. I think that would be amazing. To write it, have like a full production, get a director, get actors, get casting directors, get script writers, create a show, animate it, and put it on my YouTube channel. I think that would be an amazing thing that I super look forward into doing. When that will happen, I'm not too sure. I don't want to a hopeless dreamer. So I want to focus on what I need to be focusing on at the moment, and then when that time comes, do it.
Yeah.
And also be able to do more interviews. I look very forward into making those quicker, more simpler, and shorter. That way, they hit the major points fastly. Information is getting out quick, and I'm able to bring more people onto the YouTube channel. Those are two things that I'm looking really forward to. Making my own animation show and bringing more professional voice actors onto the YouTube channel through interview or podcast or whatever type of platform.
Awesome. Hey, man, I think we talked about a lot of things today.
Yes, we did. We talked about a lot of different topics.
A lot of different things, man. Hey, I just want to say thank you again for jumping on the podcast, talking with us about some important subjects. Well, important subjects to me, at least. I really appreciate it. If anything, I know at the end of the day, like, I have a reference to go back to and see how I can, handle some of the future
Definitely.
content issues, navigating the waters with it. But once again, I just want to say thank you. Hey, is there any, if you want to shout out any of the stuff that you're working on, your YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff, whatever you want, if you want to just take the opportunity to do that now, that'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. So I have my social media handles. Everything is Riley Chase Fox. So it's simple, easy for you to remember. If you're on Instagram, Riley Chase Fox. If you're on Twitter, Riley Chase Fox. If you're on Snapchat, Riley Chase Fox. If you're on YouTube, it's Riley Chase Fox. The only thing I kind of keep private is my Facebook. I don't really have a Facebook page. Maybe in the future I will, but right now I just have my private handler, and I kind of want to keep that separate from my professional field. So you can find me Riley Chase Fox, spelled RILEYCHASEFOX, on any of those platforms. If you want to check me out, you definitely can. A couple of projects that I'm working on right now are just some interviews that I've done recently with a couple of voice actors. I've already posted the first parts for both of them. That's Madison Bruneller and Karina Betker. They're amazingly talented actresses. They're awesome people. If you guys want to check that out, you totally can. If not, that's totally fine. I'm just gonna go home and cry myself to sleep. I'm just joking. I'm not. But that's as simple as it could possibly be right now, and just kind of what's going on with me. Taking a lot of professional acting training classes. You have to take acting classes. You need to train yourself. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm putting a commercial demo together. And I'm getting professionally trained for that. In fact, I actually have a class on Wednesday for that, and that's awesome. And I look forward to those every single week, and they're amazing. And I'm learning so much, and I'm meeting so many different people. But there is some things that I am doing that I can't talk about, unfortunately, because non-disclosure forms and all of that amazing things. But that's it. I'm very thankful that I was a part of this podcast. I didn't think I was cool enough yet, but apparently to Zach I am.
Man, no, you're really cool. No, dude. Yeah, you are cool, man. You are cool, dude. What's so funny though is I kind of messed up though. I accidentally played the outro music like way too early, so.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. No, I didn't time it right, but it's okay. Well.
Okay.
I guess it's what a way to end the show, because I did the intro twice, right? Might as well do the sign off twice.
How dare you mess up twice, Zach? Do you know who I am? I'm just kidding.
Riley Chase Fox, man. All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Hey, you guys know where to find us at? All the podcast platforms. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Peace. Deuces. So,